Welcome back to part 2 of our story, The Problematic Prince. And without further ado, let's continue the story. Erna visited her father, Walter Hardy, and his new wife. I don't know what her name is, but we can just call her Scarlet because of her hair or something. Anyways, Scarlet asked what to do about Erna. Walter, still shocked by his daughter's sudden appearance, was speechless. The news came during a chaotic night, leaving Walter in disbelief. Walter, struggling with depression from a recent scam, was wary and hesitant, fearing Erna might be trying to deceive him again. Seeing his daughter after so long, Walter was surprised and emotional, remembering when Erna had asked him to protect the Varden house. Now, Scarlet asked Walter about their daughter's future. Walter brushed it off, saying he would handle it. Scarlet became angry at Erna's unexpected visit, thinking it was unreasonable. Scarlet added that they might soon face bankruptcy and suggested giving Erna a portion of their remaining assets along with her belongings. However, Walter dismissed Scarlet's concerns, stating he would promptly send Erna back to her mother's family. Having fallen victim to a scam, Walter already faced dire circumstances and couldn't understand why his daughter came to him after all these years just to ask for money. He found the Varden family's actions shameless. Walter walked in and saw his daughter, now grown and radiant. She carried herself with grace and wore a gentle smile, exuding a ladylike demeanor. Walter was amazed at her beauty, feeling proud of how she had grown. Meanwhile, Scarlet grew increasingly irritated at his sudden display of paternal affection. Walter couldn't help but admire his daughter's beauty and elegance. She had a slender figure and delicate features, reminiscent of her mother. He marveled at her natural charm, imagining how stunning she would look if dressed up. He even considered that she might rival Princess Gladys, the most beautiful princess in town, admired by all. Impressed by his daughter's appearance, Walter had an idea. He invited Erna for dinner, explaining that they needed to discuss the future of House Hardy. Scarlet couldn't shake off her suspicions about his sudden change in behavior. Meanwhile, Prince Bjorn returned home after the banquet, finding the head maid, Madame Fitz, awaiting his arrival. Bjorn greeted Madame Fitz with a cheerful "good morning," surprising her with his early return. As Bjorn headed towards his room, Madame Fitz informed him about an invitation from the palace, sparking his curiosity. Madame Fitz explained that it came with a royal order, mandating the prince's attendance at this year's Founding Day ceremony. Failure to comply would hold all staff at the Archduke residence accountable. The prince couldn't help but feel it sounded more like a threat than an invitation. Every May, Lechen hosts its Founding Day ceremony, starting with a royal ball. This event attracts attention from high society, with many aristocrats dedicating the entire year to its preparation. Bjorn realized he hadn't attended the ball since stepping down as crown prince. While there hadn't been much fuss about it before, he suspected the leniency wouldn't last. He was certain that the adults had already made up their minds during the charity ball. Bjorn recalled a time when his mother had asked him at the ball if there was a lady he favored. Though he believed he had firmly declined, he suspected his mother's concerns had intensified because of Lady Gladys. Bjorn knew he had been facing annoyances from all sides lately. The constant pressure and nagging from different quarters were taking a toll on him. Despite his efforts to stay composed, it was becoming increasingly difficult. Meanwhile, Erna faced her own troubles. She couldn't shake off the strange and unsettling atmosphere that had enveloped the house over the past 3 days. Her father, Walter, had been evasive, continually postponing his response to her request. At this point, she would have preferred a straightforward rejection just to end the prolonged uncertainty. The room felt tense and uneasy, heightening her anxiety. Suddenly, a knock on the door broke her reverie. A maid entered with an afternoon tea tray. Erna noticed that the household staff preferred a more casual tone and discouraged formal titles like ma'am. This observation added to the growing list of peculiarities in her father's new household. Erna nodded in agreement, appreciating Lisa's friendly manner. She was grateful for how well Lisa had been looking after her during the past 3 days, but she couldn't help feeling a bit out of place. It had been a long time since she had conversed with someone her age, and Lisa was the first friend she had made in years. As she sipped her tea, Erna found herself reminiscing about her hometown, Beaufort. The Varden residence was quite secluded, so encounters with people her age were rare. Her only friend there had been a boy named Pavel, and she often thought about the simple and genuine moments they had shared. Erna couldn't help but miss Pavel, her childhood friend who had left Buford to attend university. She remembered hearing about the Royal Art Academy in Schubert, where Pavel was studying. Erna asked Lisa if the Royal Art Academy was nearby, and Lisa told her it was about 5 stops away by stagecoach, asking if Erna planned to visit. Erna was merely curious about the academy's location and didn't have any immediate plans to go. She found herself wondering how much Pavel might have changed over the years since they last saw each other. Shortly after, one of the maids summoned Erna, informing her that her father was seeking her. Walter welcomed his daughter warmly, remarking on her beauty. Erna couldn't help but feel uneasy at her father's words. Walter's sudden affection and concern felt forced to her, leaving her puzzled by his behavior. Walter continued, expressing his desire to reconnect with Erna after so long. He apologized for not reaching out sooner, admitting he struggled with his emotions towards her. Erna grew more suspicious, sensing her father might be trying to manipulate her by claiming he had been thinking about her for years and pondering what he could gain from his daughter. Erna was thrilled when Walter revealed his plan to gift her the country house. She thanked him sincerely, touched by his generosity. But then her father mentioned another request, asking Erna to stay with them. This request caught her off guard, leaving her shocked by the sudden change. Erna listened as her father explained that she could live in the house for just 1 year, emphasizing it wouldn't be a permanent arrangement. He expressed a strong desire for them to live together as a family, even if only briefly. Walter felt guilty for abandoning her and leaving her alone in a distant land for so many years. Now that she was of age, he wanted to make amends. The idea of spending a year in Schubert appealed to Erna. She saw it as a chance to experience high society, expand her social circle, and establish herself to some extent in their town. She appreciated her father's efforts to assist her in this regard. Scarlett, Walter's wife, also offered her help to Erna. She stressed that as a noblewoman, Erna could learn to refine herself and embrace the life of a glamorous young lady in high society with their guidance. Erna, however, was filled with hesitations and uncertainties. She thought about the implications of spending a year in Schubert with her father while leaving her grandmother alone with the maid back home. The idea of entering high society, a life she never expected, left her feeling unsure, pondering which path to choose. Amidst the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind, the what-ifs loomed large. She worried about the consequences of refusal and whether it might result in losing the Varden house, a place of deep sentimental value to her. Yet, as Erna looked at her father and Scarlett, she sensed genuine sincerity in their eyes. Their offer wasn't merely a formality. It was a heartfelt attempt to assist her, and that realization weighed heavily on her as she contemplated her next steps. With limited options before her, Erna recognized that spending a year in Schubert wasn't such a bad offer, especially when the prospect of losing the Varden house was at stake. Considering the circumstances, she ultimately decided to accept the offer, understanding that it might pose challenges, but was a path she couldn't afford to refuse. While at the bar, Bjorn and his friends discussed horses and upcoming races. They all agreed that the prince's horse would surely win, as they had never seen him lose in such competitions before. Some friends suggested Bjorn should sell the horse since they believed he wasn't particularly interested in horse racing. They thought horse enthusiasts would eagerly buy it. However, Bjorn firmly refused to part with his horse, despite not being passionate about races. One friend questioned why Bjorn would keep the horse if he didn't care about racing. Bjorn's response left his friends wondering if he was being childish, or if there was a hidden motive behind his decision. Additionally, Peter pointed out to Prince Bjorn that the Hardy family had hired a beautiful new maid. This caught Bjorn's attention, and he wondered how the Hardy family could afford new staff when they were supposedly facing financial difficulties. He suggested they might need to let go of one of their current maids to save money. Little did they know that the new maid-in that they were talking about was Erna herself, the daughter of the Hardy family. Peter was sure she worked in the house as a maid because he had seen her enter the residence himself. He had bumped into her on Tara Boulevard by chance and was struck by her beauty, sparking a brief conversation. Despite Peter's interest, their encounter was brief, as Erna got scared and fled before he could even ask for her name. He could tell she was from the countryside by her nervous demeanor. His friends speculated that even a shy country girl wouldn't be able to resist their prince's charm. As Bjorn returned home, he found himself trying to recall where he had heard the name Hardy before, as it seemed oddly familiar. Meanwhile, at the Hardy mansion, Scarlett was speaking with the famous Countess Victoria Mayer. Scarlett praised Erna as one of the most beautiful ladies she had ever seen, hoping that Countess Mayer would have the chance to witness Erna's beauty firsthand. Mayer hoped that Scarlett was truthful because otherwise it would have meant she came for nothing, and Mayer detested wasting her time. Victoria Mayer was a renowned countess, a legendary figure in Lechen's high society marriage market. Born as the daughter of a lesser baronet, she later rose to the position of countess and succeeded in marrying all her daughters into prestigious noble families. She became the reigning queen of high society, skillfully arranging excellent matches for every lady under her guidance. This made every mother with a daughter eager to seek her assistance. Scarlett had to call in all her acquaintances and use every favor to persuade Mayer to visit their household, yet Erna was nowhere to be found during this time. Scarlett grew nervous, longing to wed Erna to a wealthy man to resolve all their troubles. She remembered Walter's explanation about why they should keep Erna as a solution to their financial problems. Walter described how Erna, with her striking beauty, was a valuable asset, leaving Scarlett bewildered. He saw Erna as a premium product they could offer on the high society marriage market. Scarlett was stunned that Walter was willing to essentially sell their own daughter to improve their finances. He believed that by marrying her off to a wealthy man, they could pay off debts and regain financial stability. Initially hesitant, Scarlett eventually saw it as a practical plan, realizing there was no law against it. A maid informed them that Erna had returned home, sparking Mayer's interest in Erna's beauty. Erna greeted Mayer respectfully, reassuring her that Scarlett had been truthful. Mayer introduced herself to Erna and explained that she would be her chaperone from now on. Erna vividly remembers the day her grandmother found the letter. Her grandmother couldn't believe that Erna had lied to her, and Erna felt deeply sorry for her mistake. Disappointed, her grandmother urged Erna to immediately reject her father's offer. However, Erna couldn't comply because the house Hardy's lawyer was set to meet with Thomas Warden that day to finalize the house's purchase. It would temporarily belong to her father, with a promise to transfer it to Erna after a year. Erna tried to explain that her intention was to save the house, not sell it. She believed that living with her father for a year would ultimately secure their home, and she found this prospect exciting. Seeing through her deception, Erna's grandmother asked if that was truly what she desired. Erna couldn't hide her true feelings, and her somber expression betrayed her. Their conversation left Erna's grandmother feeling disappointed and disheartened. She asked Erna to give her some space, needing time to process her thoughts. Just then, Lisa, the maid, arrived with afternoon tea, hoping to offer some comfort and companionship. She invited Erna to join her for tea. Erna and Lisa savored cups of Earl Grey tea, enjoying the flavors. Later, Lisa found Erna intriguing and appreciated her kindness in inviting a maid like herself to share tea. She now understood why there was so much curiosity about Erna in the household. Others in the household often whispered about Erna, noting that she didn't quite fit the typical image of a noble lady. Some assumed she might be snobbish due to her background, while others thought her attire made her appear like a country girl. However, everyone acknowledged her undeniable beauty. Moreover, people couldn't help but notice her kindness, a rare trait among nobility, which set her apart from others in high society. Lisa, being an observant maid, also noticed the whispers surrounding Erna. Intrigued, she struck up a conversation with Erna about the artificial flower she was crafting. Erna admitted she had made it for herself and eagerly shared her recent work. Lisa was amazed by the incredible craftsmanship and detail, remarking that the artificial flower looked remarkably lifelike. Erna once again showed her kindness when she offered the flower to Lisa as a gift. Although initially hesitant, Lisa accepted the gesture, moved by Erna's generosity. This act only added to Erna's reputation for her caring nature among those who knew her well. Erna and Lisa had a nice chat about how pretty a flower would look on a hat or as a brooch. Erna was happy to see Lisa pleased with the idea. In return for the gift, Lisa decided to take Erna on a tour of their city, Shumber, as she knew Erna wasn't familiar with it and wanted to help her explore. Their first stop was Shumber Park, where they enjoyed the calm beauty of nature. Then they went to the lively port of Shumber, which had a charming maritime feel. They planned to visit the famous fountain next, but Erna had already been there before. Finally, they ended up at one of the well-known hotels in Shumber, where they unexpectedly saw Bjorn walking with another woman, Miss Perez, his recent ex-girlfriend. Erna remembered meeting Bjorn when she first arrived in Shumber, but Lisa quickly warned her not to pay attention to him. Lisa made it clear that Bjorn was strictly off limits, and even looking at him was a bad idea. Erna was confused about whether the prince was a bad person, but Lisa explained that he was just different, leaving Erna even more puzzled. She asked for further clarification, and after thinking for a moment, Lisa remembered an article that had likened Bjorn to a poisonous mushroom, finding it an apt description. The next day, Lady Myers prepared a stunning dress for Erna, which made Scarlet anxious as she felt it was too revealing, especially with Erna's shoulders and breasts exposed. Scarlet politely questioned Lady Myers about the dress, suggesting that something more modest or typical of a debutante might be more appropriate. Lady Myers sarcastically agreed with Scarlet, remarking that Erna, at the age of 20, was making her debut, so seeing her in something different from the usual attire of younger girls would indeed be quite a spectacle. Scarlet was irritated by Lady Myers' behavior, though she acknowledged her point that they were essentially trying to attract attention to Erna in order to marry her off to a wealthy suitor. Frustrated, Scarlet instructed one of their maids, Lisa, to ensure that Erna wore the provocative dress no matter what. She even threatened to fire Lisa if Erna didn't comply. Meanwhile, at Bjorn's palace, he admired himself in the mirror as he dressed in his red suit for the ball. He looked strikingly handsome with his black suit and elegant accessories. The head maid was pleased to see Bjorn dressed impeccably and ready for the ball, knowing that it would reflect well on the household and prevent any reprimand from the king. She informed him that the ball was about to commence and urged him to hurry so he wouldn't be late. But the prince wasn't concerned about arriving late. It didn't bother him much either way. Now, let's return to Erna's situation, where they were experiencing difficulties with the carriage. Inside the carriage, the husband and wife were in a heated argument about the carriage accident. Erna, feeling flustered about her revealing dress, covered herself with extra layers of clothing, desperately hoping they wouldn't make it to the ball on time. She couldn't bear the thought of facing the crowd in such an outfit. Despite her reluctance, Erna knew she had no choice but to comply, especially considering the consequences for her friend Lisa. She wished she could disappear, but they were already so late, and they eventually arrived at the ball. Stepping out of the carriage, Erna still felt ashamed and continued to cover herself. Lady Myers appeared, furious and incredulous at their tardiness. Erna explained the carriage problem that caused the delay, while Myers noticed Erna's trembling and the extra layers of clothing. Scarlet clarified that Erna insisted on attending the ball only with those extra layers, and they reluctantly agreed. Myers, having little patience for chit-chat, hurried Erna inside the ballroom, telling her that all the debutantes for the year had already been introduced, and the king had arrived, leaving them with little time. Once inside, the announcer declared the arrival of the Hardy family. Myers swiftly removed Erna's extra layers of clothing, revealing a stunning yet revealing dress that astonished everyone in the ballroom. It seemed as though Erna had become the most beautiful and important guest at the ball. At the ball, Erna's stunning beauty captivated everyone, particularly when they discovered her connection to the Hardy family and her identity as Walter's daughter. Many were surprised as they hadn't known Walter had such a lovely daughter, and rumors circulated about her living in the countryside and being unwell, leading them to assume her tardiness was due to her past illness. Amidst the attention, Erna struggled with social anxiety, finding it hard to breathe. She suddenly realized her shawl was missing but remained unaware that Lady Victory had taken it. The moment she noticed its absence, embarrassment flooded over her. Standing exposed, her anxiety intensified, making it hard to catch her breath. As all eyes in the room focused on Erna, wondering why she remained motionless, her anxiety surged. The intense scrutiny from the guests only heightened her unease, and the whispered conversations around her added to her discomfort. Suddenly, the tension was broken by the announcer's proclamation of the arrival of the Archduke of Schubert, Prince Bjorn. Prince Bjorn made a grand entrance, his black suit and exquisite golden accessories enhancing his already remarkable appearance. His beauty and charm were undeniable as he moved through the crowd. Unexpectedly, Prince Bjorn came face to face with Erna, who stood frozen in place. Skylar felt a pang of nervousness, unsure of how to navigate this unexpected encounter as the prince blocked their path. Meanwhile, Lady Victoria Myers couldn't help but be impressed by Erna's courage in the face of such a daunting situation. Prince Bjorn was also taken aback, puzzled by the sight of the girl standing frozen before him. He couldn't comprehend why she had become the center of attention, especially noting her trembling and unsteady demeanor. Acting quickly, Prince Bjorn moved to catch her, preventing any potential embarrassment. Erna, overwhelmed by her anxiety, couldn't hold back her tears. Prince Bjorn gently held her against his chest, offering comfort in the midst of the commotion. Meanwhile, the murmurs of the crowd persisted, intrigued by the unexpected turn of events. With swift grace, the prince guided Erna to regain her composure. He encouraged her to take slow, deep breaths, his soothing presence helping to ease her distress. Erna found herself drawn to his captivating gaze as she struggled with her emotions. Despite her trembling anxiety, Erna's natural beauty shone through, her baby blue eyes and flawless features. The prince continued to reassure Erna, guiding her to remain calm and take slow, soothing breaths to ease her anxiety. And with that, this concludes part 2 of this episode. Now, what will happen next? Now that Bjorn and Erna have finally met, will they become acquainted in the next episode? Will Erna become more comfortable after the prince comforts her? Lastly, how will high society or the guests react after Prince Bjorn meets up with her? Tune in next time for this amazing episode, and as always, it's our destiny to discover new manhwa. Thank you for watching.